The stars shimmered across the vast chamber where Ambassador Theliana stood, her 4 slender arms trembling slightly as she watched the holographic display. 3 planets, once vibrant worlds filled with life, now appeared as dead, burning spheres. The Voidborn had struck again, and they were moving deeper into Astrali space. "They will reach the central colonies within 20 cycles," said Commander Valen, his pale blue skin reflecting the red glow of the emergency lights. "Our defense fleet cannot stop them." Theliana closed her large, almond-shaped eyes. The Astrali Confederation had known peace for 10,000 years. Their ships were built for exploration and science, not war. Their weapons were designed to deflect asteroids, not destroy enemy vessels. "How many lives lost?" she asked quietly. 8 million on Taraxis Prime alone, Valen replied. "The Voidborn do not take prisoners. They harvest the planets and move on." The chamber fell silent. 12 council members from different species of the Confederation sat around the circular table, each face showing the same expression: hopelessness. "There is one option we have not discussed," said Alara, the eldest council member. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried across the room with perfect clarity. "The protocols forbid it, but these are desperate times." Everyone knew what she meant. The Confederation had strict rules about contacting unknown civilizations. The galaxy was filled with dangers, and hasty contact had led to disasters in the Yao past. "You suggest we send a blind signal into unexplored space?" asked Valen, his voice rising. "We might attract something worse than the Voidborn. Or we might find allies," Theliana countered. She straightened her slender body, standing tall, on the platform. "I have studied the old records. There is a system at the edge of unexplored space. The scouts who found it classified it as a death world, a planet so harsh that life there would have to be incredibly resilient to survive." "If anything still lives there," said another council member doubtfully. "If they do," Theliana replied, "they might be exactly what we need." After hours of debate, the council voted. With trembling hands, Theliana composed the message, simple, direct, and carrying the coordinates of the Helios Prime system, the Voidborn's next target. She sent the signal toward the coordinates of the Deathworld system, knowing it might be their last hope, or their final mistake. Across the galaxy, on a blue-green planet circling an unremarkable yellow star, Admiral Helena Reyes sat in her office at the United Earth Defense Command. At 53, her dark hair was streaked with gray and her face bore the scars of battles fought across the solar system. Earth had only recently emerged from 2 centuries of brutal expansion and conflict throughout their home system. The holographic display on her desk blinked with an urgent message. "Admiral," said her AI assistant, "Deep Space Monitoring has detected an unusual signal from beyond the Kuiper Belt. It appears to be artificial and non-human in origin." Reyes felt her pulse quicken. Humanity had long suspected they weren't alone in the galaxy, but this would be the first confirmed contact. "Put it through," she ordered, her voice steady despite the historic moment. The message was strange, symbols and patterns unlike any human language, but Earth's quantum computers worked quickly, finding mathematical patterns and constructing a rough translation. Help, invasion, coordinates attached, millions dying. Please. Reyes studied the attached star maps and the brief description of the attackers. The coordinates were far beyond any distance humans had traveled, but the new Henderson drive might make the journey possible. The attackers' tactics, as described in the message, reminded her of Earth's own colonial wars. Brutal, efficient, and merciless. She didn't hesitate. Within the hour, she stood before the United Earth Defense Council. "We're talking about an alien war, Admiral," said Counselor Zhang, his face stern on the screen. "We have no obligation to these Astrali." "They asked for help," Reyes replied simply. "And how do we know this isn't a trap?" asked another counselor. Reyes pointed to the tactical assessment on their screens. The message describes an invasion, force using familiar tactics, cutting off supply routes, targeting civilian centers to create panic, harvesting resources. This isn't a trap. It's a genuine cry for help. Council President Okafor leaned forward. Even if we wanted to help, our ships have never traveled that far. The 7th Fleet is equipped with the new Henderson Drive, Reyes countered. It's untested for such distances, but the theory is sound. We can reach them. The debate lasted for hours, but Reyes was relentless. Finally, the vote came, 7-6 in favor of intervention. You have your authorization, Admiral, said President Okafor. But understand this, you'll be on your own out there. Earth cannot send reinforcements if things go wrong. Reyes nodded. We understand the risks. As she left the council chamber, her second-in-command, Commander Jackson, fell into step beside her. Well, he asked. Prep the 7th Fleet, she replied. Full combat configuration. We launch in 48 hours. Jackson grinned. The crew will be pleased. They've been itching to test the Henderson Drive in something other than simulations. In the massive orbital shipyards above Earth, the 7th Fleet began to awaken. 27 warships, from nimble destroyers to the massive flagship UES Indomitable, powered up their systems. Marines checked their combat suits, designed to keep humans alive in environments that would kill unprotected. Soldiers, engineers ran final checks on weapon systems that could shatter moons. On the command deck of the Indomitable, Reyes addressed her officers. The message came from a civilization that calls itself the Australi Confederation. They're under attack by an enemy called the Voidborn, an enemy that doesn't negotiate, doesn't take prisoners, and doesn't stop until everything of value has been stripped from a world. She paused, looking at each face. We know what that's like. Earth's history is full of such conflicts. We've fought for resources, for land, for ideology. But we also know what it means to stand against extinction. We know what it means to fight, when no one else will stand with you. The officers nodded, many of them veterans of the brutal Mars campaign or the Europa conflict. We're about to make the longest jump any human vessel has ever attempted. We're going to meet species we've never encountered. And we're going to face an enemy that believes it cannot be defeated. She smiled grimly. Let's show them how humans fight. As the fleet prepared to depart, none of them noticed the small observation post on Luna, where Dr. Zivrock had watched the entire exchange through powerful sensors. Hidden among human society for years, he had studied these Deathworlders with growing fascination. Now, as he watched their warships prepare for battle, he sent an encrypted message to his distant superiors. The Deathworlders are mobilizing. They're far more advanced than our models predicted, and they're coming. He closed his communications device and continued watching the fleet. The galaxy was about to change forever, and he needed to see what these humans would do next. Their capacity for violence terrified him, but their willingness to fight for strangers they had never met intrigued him even more. The humans were coming, bringing with them the fury of a species born on a world that had tried to kill them at every turn. The Voidborn had never faced anything like them before, and neither had the Australi. The Henderson Drive engaged with a flash of blue light that stretched the fabric of space itself. The human fleet vanished from Earth's solar system, pushing through barriers that scientists had once thought impossible to cross. Inside the UES, Indomitable, Admiral Reyes gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered around her. The theoretical had become reality. Humans were traveling faster than light, crossing vast distances that would have taken generations with older technology. Drive is stable, reported Lieutenant Chen from her station. All ships reporting successful. Transition. Time to arrival? Reyes asked. 18 hours to the edge of Australi space, Admiral. Commander Jackson moved to stand beside Reyes, keeping his voice low. The crew is calling this the leap of faith. First time using the drive at full capacity. First contact with aliens. First interstellar combat mission. That's a lot of firsts. Reyes nodded. Let's make sure they're not our lasts. The 18 hours passed quickly as the fleet prepared for every possible scenario. Marines drilled in combat simulations. Weapons officers calculated firing solutions, and medical teams prepared for unknown alien biologies. When the fleet dropped, out of faster-than-light travel at the coordinates provided, They found themselves at the edge of a star system with 2 habitable planets. "Multiple ships detected," announced the tactical officer. "Small vessels, limited weapon signatures. One is approaching our position." On the main screen, they watched as an elegant craft shaped like a silver leaf glided toward them. It was beautiful, but clearly not designed for war. Its hull was thin, with no visible armor or weapon ports. "We're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Rivera, attempting to establish translation protocols. After a few minutes of computer processing, a voice came through, melodic and clearly non-human but understandable. "Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Theliana of the Australi Confederation. We sent the distress signal. Are you from the Deathworld system?" Reyes straightened her uniform and nodded to Rivera. "This is Admiral Helena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your call for help and have come to assist." There was a pause, then, "Earth sent a military fleet? We are grateful beyond words. Please, may I come aboard to brief you on our situation?" "We welcome you, Ambassador," Reyes replied. As the transmission ended, Jackson frowned. "Admiral, sensors are picking up another ship, much smaller, using some kind of cloaking technology. It's trailing the Ambassador's vessel." Reyes didn't hesitate. "Launch interceptors now." 3 human destroyers broke formation with practiced precision, their engines flaring as they moved to surround the hidden craft. The Australi ship continued, its approach seemingly unaware of the danger. "Unknown vessel, this is the UES Defiant," came the voice of Captain Torres. "Power down your engines and drop your cloak, or we will fire." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a ship appeared, angular, black, and bristling with weapons. "Voidborn scout ship," Jackson said grimly. They were tracking the Ambassador. "Fire." "At will," Reyes ordered. The human destroyers opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams sliced through the Voidborn ship's hull, followed by a barrage of missiles that detonated in a brilliant flash. The enemy vessel shattered into drifting fragments. "Target destroyed," reported Torres. "No survivors." On the approaching Australi ship, Ambassador Theliana watched in shock as the human vessels destroyed the Voidborn scout without warning or hesitation. She had not even known they were being followed. "By the stars," whispered her aide. "Did you see how quickly they reacted? How efficiently they killed?" Theliana nodded slowly. "We asked for help from a death world. This is what we got." When the Ambassador's shuttle docked with the Indomitable, Reyes and her senior officers waited in the hangar bay. The airlock cycled and the aliens stepped through. The humans had seen images of the Australi from their transmissions, but reality was different. Ambassador Theliana stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 slender arms, pale blue skin, and enormous, almond-shaped eyes. She moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid, as though gravity affected her differently. Behind her came 5 other aliens, all different species, all members of the Confederation Council. Some floated on anti-gravity units, others walked on multiple legs, but all shared one common feature. They had evolved on gentle worlds with stable environments. In contrast, the humans, stocky, solid, and heavily muscled, seemed brutish and primitive. But it was the humans who stood confidently in their own gravity, who had built the massive warship around them, who had just destroyed an enemy vessel without breaking a sweat. "Admiral Reyes," said Theliana, bowing slightly. "Thank you for coming to our aid, though I admit we did not expect this." She gestured at the warships visible through the hangar bay's force field. "You asked for help against an invasion," Reyes replied simply. "This is how humans help." The meeting moved to the Indomitable's conference room, where the Australi delegation provided full details of the Voidborn invasion. They showed holographic images of the attackers, heavily armored, beings with advanced technology and ruthless tactics. "They've taken 3 of our border worlds already," explained Commander Valen, the Australi military leader. "Their next target is Helios Prime, home to 3 billion of our people across 2 planets. The human officers studied the tactical displays with professional interest, asking questions about Voidborn weapons, shield frequencies, and troop deployments. The Australi noticed something disturbing. The humans weren't horrified by the brutality of the Voidborn. They were analyzing it, categorizing it, developing counters to it. "You seem familiar with this type of warfare?" Theliana said carefully. "Commander," Jackson nodded. "Humanity's history is full of conflicts like this. Before we unified, Earth had hundreds of nations that fought over resources, territory, ideology. We've seen these tactics before. But the scale, billions of lives at stake," protested one of the Astrali Council members. "Scale changes logistics, not strategy," Reyes replied. "The Voidborn attack pattern is actually quite predictable. They're following a standard resource extraction model. Secure high-value targets first, establish supply lines, then expand methodically." She stood and pointed to the star map. "Their mistake was attacking a civilization with neighbors who know something about fighting." Medical Officer Dr. Patel had been quietly scanning the Astrali during the meeting. She looked up from her data pad with concern. "Admiral, I should mention that our new allies have significantly different physiologies than humans. Their bone density is roughly half of ours. Their muscle mass is approximately 40% of human standard. Their respiratory systems would struggle in Earth's atmosphere." The Astrali delegation shifted uncomfortably as they realized what this meant. The humans came from an environment that would kill most Confederation species. Their bodies were built to withstand pressures and stresses that would crush an Astrali. They were, quite literally, made of sterner stuff. "You've never had to evolve for survival, have you?" Commander Jackson asked quietly. "Your worlds never tried to kill you?" Theliana shook her head. "The Confederation formed among species from garden worlds, planets with stable climates, limited predators, and abundant resources. We evolved for cooperation, not competition." "Well," said Reyes, standing up, "you're about to see what happens when a species evolves on a world that tries to kill them every day." She turned to Jackson. "Prepare the fleet. We make for Helios Prime immediately." As the meeting ended, no one noticed the small maintenance droid that had recorded everything. Inside it, hidden among circuitry that appeared human-made, Dr. Zivrak listened and watched. He had managed to smuggle himself aboard disguised as a Confederation science officer, and what he was learning about these humans both fascinated and terrified him. They had evolved on a planet with crushing gravity, poisonous flora, deadly predators, and extreme weather. They had survived by becoming the most dangerous species on their world, and now they were bringing that danger to the stars. As the human fleet prepared to defend Helios Prime, Zivrak sent another encrypted message. "The Deathworlders are more dangerous than we thought, but they fight for others, not just themselves. This changes everything." The Helios Prime system glowed like twin jewels against the darkness of space. 2 habitable planets orbiting a golden sun, home to 3 billion Astrali colonists. Beautiful cities of crystal and light stretched across continents. Orbital stations, hung in perfect geometric patterns. It was a testament to thousands of years of peaceful expansion, and the Voidborn fleet had come to destroy it all. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the enemy formation. 117 Voidborn ships against her 27 human vessels, and the remaining 43 Astrali defenders. "Their ships are larger than ours," observed Commander Jackson. "Better armed too." "But predictable," Reyes replied. "Look at that formation, standard resource protection configuration. They're here to strip the planets, not just win a battle." Ambassador. Theliana and Commander Valen had joined them on the bridge. The Astrali commander looked at the tactical display with growing despair. "We cannot win this," Valen said quietly. "Perhaps we should evacuate as many civilians as possible instead of fighting." Reyes shook her head. "Running will only delay the inevitable. The Voidborn will hunt you across the galaxy." She pointed to the display. "But they've never faced humans before. They don't know what we can do." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to all ships." When the link was established, Reyes addressed the combined fleet. "This is Admiral Reyes. Today we fight not just for Helios Prime, but for the future of 2 civilizations. The Voidborn believe they cannot be defeated. They've never encountered Earth forces before." She paused. Show them no mercy because they will show none to you. She nodded to her tactical officer. Deploy the fleet. Operation Hammer and Anvil. The human ships moved into a formation that made the Astrali tacticians gasp in alarm. Rather than forming a solid defensive line, Reyes split her forces, creating what appeared to be vulnerable gaps in their coverage. Admiral, protested Valen, your formation has critical weaknesses. The Voidborn will exploit them. That's what we're counting on, Jackson replied with a grim smile. The Voidborn fleet approached, their black ships moving with mechanical precision. As Reyes had predicted, they quickly identified the apparent weaknesses in the human formation and directed their forces to exploit them. They're taking the bait, reported the tactical officer. Voidborn battle group targeting our center gap. Hold position, Reyes ordered. Let them commit fully. The Astrali defenders watched in horror as the Voidborn poured ships into what seemed like a fatal flaw in the human defense. Then, just as the enemy reached the point of no return, Reyes gave a single command. Spring the trap. Human ships that had appeared to be in full retreat suddenly executed maneuvers that the Astrali had thought impossible. Tight turns at speeds that would have torn their own vessels apart. The Indomitable itself pivoted 180 degrees in seconds, revealing previously hidden weapon arrays. Fire all batteries, Reyes ordered calmly. The space between the fleets erupted with energy beams, missiles, and projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Voidborn ships caught in the crossfire began to explode. Boarding teams launch, Jackson commanded. From the bellies of 3 human destroyers, smaller craft shot toward damaged Voidborn vessels. Inside them, human marines in powered combat, armor prepared for what they did best, close-quarters combat. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Theliana watched in amazement. You're sending your people onto their ships? Why not just destroy them from a distance? Intelligence gathering, Reyes explained. And humans excel at boarding actions. It's in our history, from ancient naval warfare to space combat. The Marines breached the hulls of 3 Voidborn ships. What followed was brutal combat through alien corridors. The Voidborn were physically stronger than humans, but the Marines had the advantage of their powered armor and centuries of close combat techniques. Team Alpha has secured the command deck, came the report. Downloading enemy tactical data now. Team Bravo has set charges on the enemy engine core. Extraction in progress. Team Charlie encountering heavy resistance. Requesting backup. Reyes redirected forces smoothly, adapting to the flow of battle. The Astrali ships following her commands provided covering fire for the human vessels. It was a complex dance of destruction, with Reyes as the choreographer. But the Voidborn were not easily defeated. Their ships began to concentrate fire on the human destroyer Dauntless, overwhelming its shields. Dauntless reports critical damage, announced the tactical officer. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. They're losing life support. On the main screen, they could see the Dauntless listing, venting atmosphere and debris. Then, to the Astrali's shock, the damaged destroyer's engines flared to full power. What are they doing? Asked Theliana. The only thing they can, Jackson replied grimly. The Dauntless accelerated directly toward the largest Voidborn command ship, transmitting a final message for Earth and the Confederation. Then it slammed into the enemy vessel at near relativistic speed. The resulting explosion consumed both ships completely, Theliana gasped. They sacrificed themselves? They were already lost, Reyes said quietly. Their sacrifice meant something this way. The concept was alien to the Astrali, whose culture valued preservation of life above all else. But as they watched, 2 more critically damaged human ships made similar sacrifices, taking out Voidborn command vessels in fiery collisions. These unexpected tactics threw the Voidborn into confusion. Their formation began to break apart as ships tried to avoid becoming targets for the human kamikaze attacks. They're retreating, reported the tactical officer with surprise. The Voidborn fleet is falling back. Jackson looked at the battle data in disbelief. They've never retreated before, not in any of the records the Astrali provided. They've never faced humans before, Reyes replied. As the enemy withdrew, the extent of the human losses became clear. 8 ships destroyed, 5 more heavily damaged, thousands of crew members lost. But Helios Prime was saved, and for the first time the Voidborn had been defeated. In the aftermath, the Astrali witnessed another side of humanity. The same people who had fought with such ferocity now worked tirelessly to rescue survivors from damaged ships. Human medical teams treated both their own wounded and captured Voidborn with equal care. Dr. Zivrak, still disguised and observing from within the maintenance systems, watched a human medic treat a badly injured Marine. The soldier had lost an arm during the boarding action, yet he was already talking about getting a prosthetic replacement and returning to duty. These humans, Zivrak recorded in his secret log, possess physical and psychological resilience beyond anything in our models. They withstand injuries that would kill most species. They continue fighting long past the point where rationality would dictate surrender. And most remarkably, they willingly sacrifice themselves for strategic advantage, a concept that horrifies the Astrali, but has clearly been part of human warfare for centuries. He watched Admiral Reyes conferring with Ambassador Thaliana, planning their next move. The Voidborn have retreated but not surrendered, he heard Reyes explain. They'll regroup, adapt, and attack again. That's what any good military force does after a defeat. What would humans do? Thaliana asked. Reyes smiled grimly. We wouldn't wait for them to come back stronger. We'd take the fight to them. Zivrak added a final note to his log. The Deathworlders aren't just defending, they're planning a counteroffensive. The galaxy is about to change in ways none of us anticipated when that distress signal was sent. News of the victory at Helios Prime spread rapidly across the Astrali Confederation. For the first time since the Voidborn invasion began, people dared to hope. Recordings of human ships in battle became the most watched content in Confederation history. Children played humans and Voidborn in schoolyards, always arguing over who would get to be the Deathworlders. But Admiral Reyes knew they had won only a single battle, not the war. In the conference room of the Indomitable, she addressed the combined human Astrali command staff. The Voidborn will adapt, she said, pointing to the tactical display showing enemy movements. They're pulling back to strengthen their supply lines and regroup. Intelligence from the captured ships confirms they control at least 68 star systems. Commander Violin of the Astrali Defense Force shook his head in dismay. We cannot possibly defeat such a vast empire. Not by defending one world at a time, Reyes agreed, which is why we're going to strike at their heart. She expanded the tactical display, highlighting several key positions in Voidborn territory. These are their primary supply depots, command centers, and shipyards. If we hit these targets, we can cripple their ability to continue the war. The Astrali Military Council looked shocked. You're proposing we attack Voidborn space directly? Asked one counselor. Our defensive fleet isn't designed for such operations. Then we'll redesign it, said Commander Jackson, stepping forward. While repairing our damaged vessels, we can upgrade yours as well. Over the next 3 weeks, a remarkable exchange of knowledge and technology unfolded. Human engineers introduced Astrali shipbuilders to concepts they had never considered. Redundant systems, armor plating, internal compartmentalization. In turn, the Astrali showed humans technologies that Earth scientists had only theorized about, particularly in energy efficiency and faster-than-light travel. Your Henderson drive is impressive, said Alara, the elder Astrali scientist, as she examined the human engine designs. But it consumes enormous power. Our phase shift technology uses half the energy for the same result. The humans absorbed this new knowledge with astounding speed. Within days, they had integrated Astrali phase shift principles into their own drive systems, creating hybrid engines more powerful than either original design. Dr. Zivrak, still disguised as a Confederation science officer, observed this technological exchange with growing concern. He had finally managed to send a secure transmission to his superiors. The humans adapt at a rate that defies our models, he reported. They assimilate and weaponize new concepts almost immediately. What takes other species generations, they accomplish in weeks. Are they a threat? Came the encrypted response. Zivrak watched as a human engineer explained to an Astrali team how to convert their science vessel into a weapons platform. The human was patient, careful to ensure the aliens understood each step. They could be, he replied, but they seem genuinely committed to defending the Confederation. Their limitations are not technological but ethical. They immediately conceptualize military applications for every discovery, yet they restrain themselves from developing the most destructive possibilities. As the fleet preparations continued, Admiral Reyes approved a plan to deploy Special Forces teams deep into void-born territory. These small groups of human operatives would use modified Astrali stealth technology to infiltrate key enemy installations. Major Elena Diaz led one such team. A veteran of Earth's conflicts, she had specialized in operations in extreme environments. Now she and her 5-person squad prepared to infiltrate a void-born atmospheric processing station that provided breathable air to one of their largest shipyards. The atmosphere there would kill an Astrali in minutes, explained the mission briefing officer, but human physiology can tolerate it with minimal protection. Diaz's team deployed under cover of darkness, their shuttle cloaked with Astrali technology. They landed on the barren moon housing the processing station and moved quickly across its toxic surface. Their modified combat suits allowed them to operate in an environment that would be lethal to most species. "This is Phantom Lead," Diaz whispered into her comm unit. "We're at the primary intake valve beginning infiltration. Across void-born space, similar teams executed synchronized strikes against carefully selected targets. For the first time, the void-born experienced the terror of an enemy who could appear anywhere, strike with surgical precision, and vanish without a trace. Diaz's team planted explosive charges throughout the atmospheric processor. As they prepared to extract, the Major noticed something unusual in the facility's control room. A data terminal displaying information unlike the standard void-born tactical displays they had studied. "Hold position," she ordered her team. "I'm seeing something new here." She accessed the terminal, using the decryption techniques developed from captured void-born technology. What she found made her blood run cold. "Download everything," she told her tech specialist. "Priority Alpha." When the team returned to the Indomitable, Diaz went directly to Admiral Reyes with the recovered data cores. "The void-born invasion isn't random," she explained, displaying the decoded information. "They're following specific targeting instructions from an unknown source. Look at these attack patterns. They're systematically eliminating worlds that share certain characteristics." Reyes studied the data with growing concern. "These instructions include detailed information about both Confederation worlds and Earth." Jackson leaned in closer. "Someone has been studying both civilizations for a very long time." The implications were disturbing. The Voidborn weren't simply conquering for resources. They were following a plan created by an intelligence with extensive knowledge of both the Confederation and humanity. As the combined fleet prepared to launch its counteroffensive, the Voidborn responded with increasing desperation. They began deploying biological weapons against civilian populations and targeting cultural centers rather than military installations. "They're trying to break our will to fight," explained Reyes to the Astrali Council. "It's a terror tactic we've seen in human history." "How do you counter such barbarity?" asked Thaliana, her voice heavy with grief after reports of millions of Astrali civilians killed by void-born bioweapons. "By not giving up," Reyes replied simply. "By showing them that every atrocity only strengthens our resolve." The counteroffensive began with simultaneous strikes against 3 void-born logistics hubs. The upgraded Astrali ships, now comparable to human vessels in combat capability, performed beyond expectations. Human Astrali joint strike teams disabled enemy installations with minimal casualties. Dr. Zivrak continued his covert observation, now openly working as a cultural liaison between the two species. What he witnessed both inspired and terrified him. The humans taught the Astrali how to fight, while the Astrali taught the humans about the wider galaxy. Together they were becoming something new, a force that combined human tenacity with Astrali idealism. "The Deathworlders are changing the Confederation," he noted in his private log, "and the Confederation is changing them. But the question remains, who is controlling the Voidborn, and why do they fear this alliance so much?" As the combined fleet pushed deeper into enemy territory, That question became increasingly urgent. Someone had studied both civilizations extensively. Someone had sent the Voidborn to eliminate them both, and that someone was watching their every move. In the command center of the UES Indomitable, Admiral Reyes and her senior staff studied the data recovered from Voidborn installations. After weeks of analysis, a disturbing pattern had emerged. The Voidborn aren't acting on their own, Reyes explained to the combined Human Astrali Council. They're being controlled by another entity, one that calls itself the Archivists. On the main display, she showed intercepted communications between Voidborn command ships and an unknown source. The messages contained detailed instructions about which worlds to target and in what order. The Archivists appear to be an ancient species, continued Commander Jackson. They've been observing both the Confederation and Earth for centuries. They consider themselves the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Ambassador Theliana looked troubled. Why would they use the Voidborn as proxies instead of attacking directly? Before Reyes could answer, the conference room door slid open. Dr. Zivrak entered, but something about him had changed. Gone was the nervous Confederation science officer. He stood taller now, his bearing confident. Because the Archivists prefer to remain hidden, he said. They manipulate other species to eliminate potential rivals while they watch from the shadows. Security officers immediately drew their weapons, but Zivrak raised his hands in a gesture of peace. I am not your enemy, he said calmly. I represent a coalition of species who have been monitoring the Archivists for millennia. You've been spying on us, Reyes stated flatly. Observing, Zivrak corrected, just as the Archivists have. The difference is that we seek allies, not servants. Over the next hour, Zivrak revealed the truth. His coalition had watched countless civilizations rise and fall under Archivist manipulation. The Archivists believed themselves to be the only species worthy of technological advancement. Any civilization that developed too quickly became a target. We chose not to help the Confederation because they lacked the necessary— He hesitated, searching for the right word. Ruthlessness. They would never have fought the Archivists effectively. But humans would, Jackson said. Zivrak nodded. You understand what it means to fight an existential war. The Archivists observed Earth for centuries, classifying humans as dangerous but containable. When you developed faster-than-light travel earlier than their models predicted, they accelerated their plans. They directed the Voidborn to attack the Confederation specifically to draw us out, Reyes realized, to assess our capabilities. Precisely. They wanted to see how you would respond to a crisis not of your making. Your willingness to help strangers surprised them. Major Diaz, who had led the Special Forces mission that discovered the first evidence of Archivist control, leaned forward. So where are these Archivists hiding? How do we fight an enemy we can't see? Zivrak activated a small device that projected a holographic star map. Their main computational array is hidden here, a massive installation orbiting a neutron star called Proxus 9. The tactical officers examined the location with growing concern. The neutron star emitted intense radiation that would be fatal to most organic life. The radiation levels there would kill most species in minutes, noted Dr. Patel, the medical officer. An environment that kills most life forms? Commander Jackson said with a grim smile. Sounds like home. Earth had survived nuclear wars, climate disasters, and cosmic radiation events. Humans had developed technologies to survive in environments that would be lethal to most species. The Archivists had chosen their hiding place believing no organic life could reach them there. They hadn't counted on Deathworlders. Reyes began developing a plan that capitalized on humanity's unique advantages. Their radiation resistance, physical endurance, and psychological resilience. The Confederation would use their superior sensor technology and navigation systems to get the human strike force into position. As preparations accelerated, everything changed. The Voidborn attacks suddenly ceased. Confederation long-range sensors detected their fleets retreating from all fronts. They're pulling back, reported Commander Valen. All of them. The Archivists know we've discovered them, Zivrak said grimly. They're changing tactics. Within hours, reports began arriving from planets throughout human and Confederation space. Ancient structures buried for millennia and previously thought to be harmless ruins, had suddenly activated. Dormant technology hidden on dozens of worlds came to life. Autonomous weapons platforms designed to eliminate potential threats. Earth faced its first extraterrestrial attack as these awakened weapons targeted major cities. Emergency broadcasts showed massive metal constructs rising from oceans and emerging from beneath mountains, firing energy weapons at population centers. Admiral Reyes watched the reports from her homeworld with growing fury. They've been planning this for thousands of years, hiding their weapons on our planets, waiting for the right moment to activate them. The Astrali, despite centuries of peace, stood with their human allies. They provided defensive technology that helped Earth's military contain the ancient weapons. Force field generators based on Astrali designs protected millions of human lives. "We'll help you as you helped us," Ambassador Theliana declared as she coordinated Confederation aid ships headed for Earth. This shared threat cemented the alliance as both civilizations recognized they were fighting for their very existence. The archivists had revealed themselves and, in doing so, had united their intended victims. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Reyes finalized her assault plan. "We'll approach the archivist installation using captured Voidborn identification codes. Zivrak's coalition has provided us with outdated but functional archivist command protocols that might get us past their outer defenses." "And once we're in?" asked Jackson. "We do what humans have always done when faced with extinction," Reyes replied. "We fight with everything we have." The plan was audacious. Using Astrali cloaking technology, human ships would approach disguised as damaged Voidborn vessels seeking sanctuary. Meanwhile, specially augmented human strike teams in radiation-hardened suits would prepare for a direct assault on the installation itself. Dr. Patel had developed new radiation protection based on both human and Astrali medical technology. "These suits won't protect you forever," she warned the strike team leaders. "You'll have approximately 4 hours before suffering permanent cellular damage." 4 hours is plenty of time to blow up an ancient alien supercomputer, Major Diaz replied confidently. As the assault force prepared to depart, a message arrived from Earth's United Defense Council. Despite fighting their own battles against the awakened archivist weapons, they had voted unanimously to support Reyes's plan. "Godspeed, Admiral," said President Okafor. "All of humanity stands with you." The combined fleet prepared to depart for Proxys 9. Human and Astrali ships, once so different in design philosophy, now formed a unified armada. They had adapted to each other, learned from each other, become stronger together. Dr. Zivrak, now officially serving as a strategic advisor, watched the preparations with mixed emotions. "I've observed many species over the centuries," he told Reyes privately, "but none have ever responded to an existential threat quite like humans." "What do you mean?" she asked. "Most species either surrender or lash out blindly. You calculated, adapted, and formed alliances. You turned potential extinction into an opportunity for growth." He gestured toward the fleet assembling outside the viewports. "And now you're taking the fight directly to an enemy that has hidden successfully for millennia." Reyes smiled thinly. "That's what happens when you evolve on a world that tries to kill you every day. You learn to fight back." As the fleet prepared to depart, the final pieces of the plan fell into place. They would confront an enemy that had manipulated galactic civilization for thousands of years. An enemy that believed itself untouchable. An enemy that had never faced Deathworlders before. The neutron star Proxys 9 blazed in the viewport like an angry eye, bathing the approaching fleet in deadly radiation. Even at this distance, the radiation levels would be fatal to most species. The massive archivist installation orbited the star, harvesting its immense energy directly. "It's beautiful in a terrifying way," said Commander Jackson, standing beside Admiral Reyes on the bridge of the Indomitable. "Most deadly things are," Reyes replied. She turned to Communications Officer Rivera. "Begin transmission of the Voidborn identification codes." The combined human Astrali fleet approached under the disguise of damaged Voidborn vessels seeking sanctuary. Thanks to Astrali cloaking technology and the command codes provided by Zivrak's coalition, they managed to bypass the outer defense grid. "They're responding," reported Rivera. They're instructing us to approach docking bay 7. Reyes nodded. Maintain course and speed. Launch strike teams on my mark. Throughout the fleet, specially trained human strike teams prepared for deployment. Their suits, enhanced with both human and Astrali technology, would protect them from the deadly radiation, but only for a limited time. Major Diaz checked her team's equipment one final time. Remember, we have 4 hours before radiation sickness becomes critical. Set your timers now. Dr. Zivrak, also protected by advanced technology his coalition had developed, joined Diaz's team. I've studied the archivist systems for centuries, he explained. I can help you navigate their central core. Just keep up, Diaz replied with a grim smile. As the fleet drew closer to the installation, something unexpected happened. A communication channel opened, and for the first time the archivists spoke directly. Interesting, came a voice that sounded artificial yet somehow ancient. You believe yourselves clever, approaching in vessels belonging to our servants, but we have been watching your kind for millennia, humans of Earth. On the main screen an image appeared, a being unlike anything they had encountered before. It appeared to be composed of shifting energy patterns contained within a crystalline structure. You should not exist, the archivist stated, its tone, emotionless yet somehow contemptuous. Your world should have killed you millennia ago. Your own violent nature should have led to self-destruction. You are an evolutionary mistake. Admiral Reyes stepped forward, facing the alien entity without fear. We're not a mistake, she responded. We're what happens when you force life to fight for every moment of existence. We're what happens when intelligence evolves not in a garden, but in a crucible. The archivist seemed to pulse with energy. Your resistance is pointless. We have guided galactic evolution for millions of years. Species rise and fall according to our design. Not anymore, Reyes replied. She turned to her tactical officer. Launch all strike teams. Commence the attack. Across the fleet, small craft shot toward the installation. At the same time, the human and Astrali vessels dropped their disguises and opened fire on the installation's external weapon systems. The archivists had prepared for many scenarios, but not for the particular blend of Astrali precision and human unpredictability. Their defense algorithms, designed to counter conventional attacks, struggled to adapt to the humans' seemingly chaotic yet coordinated assault patterns. Major Diaz's team breached the installation through a maintenance airlock. Inside, they encountered autonomous defense drones that moved with mechanical precision. These things were designed to fight logical opponents, Diaz observed as her team used unpredictable movement patterns to confuse the drones' targeting systems. They can't adapt to human unpredictability. The strike teams fought their way deeper into the installation, their progress marked by the destruction of key systems. The humans' combat experience, honed through centuries of warfare on Earth, proved invaluable in the close-quarters fighting. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Reyes directed the space battle with calm efficiency. Human ships executed maneuvers that confounded the archivist defensive systems, creating openings for the more fragile but technologically advanced Astrali vessels to target critical systems. Admiral, reported the tactical officer, we're detecting energy buildups throughout the installation. They appear to be activating some kind of failsafe system. They're preparing to destroy themselves rather than be defeated, Jackson realized. Zivrak's voice came through the comm system from inside. The installation, not just themselves. The failsafe will create a gravitational pulse that will destroy everything within this star system. Inside the installation, Diaz's team had reached the central core where the archivist governing intelligence resided. The chamber was filled with crystalline structures pulsing with energy. At the center floated a being larger than the others, the Prime Archivist. You have fought well for primitive beings. It communicated directly into their minds. We have miscalculated your capabilities. You underestimated us because you've never had to struggle, Diaz replied. You've never had to evolve through adversity. The Prime Archivist pulsed with energy. Perhaps you are worthy after all. We offer you a place in our grand design, humans of Earth. Join us as enforcers, elevated above all other species. With your physical capabilities and our ancient knowledge, we could rule the galaxy together. Diaz looked at the alien entity, understanding the temptation it offered. Humanity could become the dominant species in the galaxy, with technology beyond imagination. She shook her head. We didn't come to rule. We came because someone asked for help. With that simple statement, she activated the quantum disruptors that her team had planted throughout the central core. The crystalline structures began to crack as the disruptors interfered with the patterns that maintained the archivist's existence. Evacuation protocols initiated, announced the ship's AI, throughout the installation. All strike teams returned to extraction points immediately. The race against time began. Strike teams fought their way back through the installation as systems failed around them. Some teams didn't make it, sacrificing themselves to ensure the mission's success. Major Diaz and Dr. Zivrak reached the final extraction point as the installation began to break apart. The shuttle pilot pushed the engines beyond safety limits to escape the growing gravitational disturbance. All vessels, maximum thrust, ordered Admiral Reyes. Get clear of the blast radius. The combined fleet accelerated away from the doomed installation. Behind them, the structure collapsed in on itself, the archivist failsafe triggering a gravitational implosion that consumed their ancient fortress. The cost had been enormous. Nearly half of the human fleet was destroyed or heavily damaged. Thousands of brave souls, both human and Astrali, had given their lives to secure victory. As rescue operations began, the remaining Voidborn forces, now freed from archivist control, retreated to distant systems. Without their masters, they reverted to a less aggressive state, no longer a threat to galactic civilization. 2 weeks later, Admiral Reyes stood with Ambassador Thaliana on the observation deck of the battered but triumphant Indomitable. Below them, Earth shimmered like a blue jewel. Confederation medical ships orbited alongside human vessels, their crews working together to treat the wounded. They called for help, Reyes said quietly to Dr. Zivrak, who had become both ally and friend, and they got humanity. All of us, the good and the bad, the gentle and the fierce. That's what your opponents never understood, Zivrak replied. They saw your capacity for violence and missed your capacity for sacrifice. They saw your physical resilience but missed your moral strength. That's why Deathworlders like you are so dangerous and so necessary. In the months that followed, humanity and the Confederation began building a permanent alliance. Earth opened its borders to Confederation diplomats and scientists, while human expertise in defense and adaptation spread throughout Astrali worlds. The galaxy would never be the same. Not because Deathworlders had brought a fleet of fury, but because when that fury had served its purpose, they had chosen to build rather than to rule, to protect rather than to dominate. When the Astrali had sent their desperate signal into the unknown, they could never have imagined that they would find not just allies but friends who would fight with everything they had simply because help was needed. Perhaps that was the greatest strength of the Deathworlders after all, not their physical might or their combat skills, but their capacity to care about the fate of strangers across the stars. The end.